Hello, good afternoon, everyone. We have a guest with us, but a new partner of NACE, a very important partner of our association. This is Gerald Solomon. And, well, we're going to go and get to this because this is really to catch everyone up on the work that NASEF does and what our partnership between NACE and NASEF looks like. NACE and NASEF, that sounds so similar to each other. I got to catch myself.
Sounds good.
But
It
we're
was meant to. It was meant to be, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is still a pretty new relationship. So
Mhm.
we did send out a bunch of information on that, but I think this is a chance to actually have a discussion over what we're currently planning, but also take input of what we might be able to look forward to in the future. Before I get carried away and too far ahead of myself, there, Gerald, I want you to do two things there. I want you to introduce yourself for the
Mhm.
audience, for all of our member institutions, and I would also love it if you could then also share what NASEF is. I know many of our schools are probably very familiar with who NASEF is, what you do, but I know there's probably a good cohort of coaches and directors who aren't familiar with NASEF. So if we can bring everyone up to the same page, that'd be fantastic. But let's start off with the intro. Who is Gerald Solomon?
Wow, I'll bore everyone. So I live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I spent the last 30 years living in California. I've been in philanthropy for 20 plus years. The last 13 years have been running a family foundation in Southern California called the Samueli Foundation. Our entire work was around youth development. And I always kid people that I was fortunate during that tenure to work for some great family folks and have a little bit of a money tree. So I was able to experiment and play and do different things. We did a lot of work in funding around STEM and STEAM education. The family also owned the Anaheim Ducks, so I got deeply involved in sports branding. I built out the foundation for the Anaheim Ducks. So I'm pretty familiar with kind of the education and the sport world all combined. And then that kind of leads me in. And if you don't mind, I kind of prepared a short little slide, Michael. I'll kind of share a short little deck here with everyone. Let me see if I can make all of this work the right way. Here we go. See, I try to make even you look pretty there. How do you like that? So you could see that it comes across okay.
It does. Now we are looking at your presenter view, not the if you're playing it as a slideshow.
Yeah,
We're
I
not
just
seeing
put it
that.
in here because sometimes my computer will freeze up. So I hope you don't mind. You should be able to see it
No,
pretty well
this
though.
works.
It's an interesting story how it got involved in esports. I'm sure all of you either know or know of Mark Deppy at UCI. We spent a lot of time and a lot of money investing in STEM education, endowing the schools of engineering at UCI, UCLA, supported Berkeley, a number of other places around. And after about 8 years and literally millions of dollars, we started looking at what our impact was, and we were not reaching the kids we wanted to reach. Those that weren't the star basketball, baseball, or football player, those that weren't the grade A students, and especially kids of color and girls. And as we started researching, I discovered this thing called esports. And lo and behold, literally 4 miles down the road from me was Mark Deppy. And I didn't even know who he was. So I took a tour, and after I was done, I went back and I said to the Samuelis, I said, man, this is cool stuff. I said, we have to figure out how to take advantage of it, not just to play, but to use it as a tool for kids to learn and to grow. So we went ahead and we created a program almost 3 years ago now, 2.5+ years ago, starting in Orange County with 26 schools. And now we've just grown all over the world. And I'll get into some of that. I'm going to share a couple of slides with you to give you a sense of what NASEF really all is about. It's called the North America Scholastic Esports Federation, and it really is a federated model. We build out affiliates and programs all over the country and the world and give them total autonomy. But as far as us, what we've done is we've created a curriculum, and it's all based upon a concept of what all of us know in education as project-based learning. That's one of the reasons why esports is so much fun and so successful with kids and such an attractor is kids like to get involved. So whether you think of Lego, robotics, Fab Labs, science fairs, etc., that's all in the vernacular called project-based learning. We figured out, I think, how to do that for middle school and high school through the lens of esports in a virtual world. And especially with COVID, wow, did that make a whole lot of sense. But our real core is this slide here. And that is, we built out a curriculum. When I was with the foundation, we gave a grant to Mark Deppy's team at UCI, the School of Engineering, and the Orange County Department of Ed. And they literally built out a curriculum tied to all of state learning standards, Common Core, ISTE, NGSS, CTE, SEL standards, et cetera. And it's all based upon that infographic on the right. You may know the names of people like Constance Steinkuhler and Mimi Ito and Katie Salen. They helped us create this framework. And in the center, you see the player, because that's the attractor. That's what kids love to do. But around that is how we built our curriculum. And our curriculum is a full 4-year high school curriculum tied to all standards, a full middle school curriculum, and all CTE tracks. And with a lot of effort and a lot of understanding and talking with the Department of Education in California, we actually got our entire curriculum package approved. We are the only entity literally in the world that has a Department of Education approved curriculum focused on esports, not the industry of esports, but using esports to learn and grow, focused on strategic development, content creation, innovation and entrepreneurship, and organizational management. And as you look at this infographic, you see that all of those little bubble call-outs there are all skills that get developed and are part of what makes your school, your program, esports as a whole, or any sport really successful. And not everyone likes to play, or everyone is good at competitive playing. So what we do is we build this club concept, and then we go ahead and we ask people to take on different roles. So one of the things that's unique to our world, different than any other competition that I've seen, is when our clubs, and we now have 1,800 schools, about 16,000 kids, and we're also in 11 countries. We just did our last event with the U.S. State Department on Farmcraft, building a world in Minecraft, where we had 41 countries and 2,716 schools participate. In every one of our competitions, you see the kids play, but you also have to show the artifacts of their learning. So the kids who are not the competitive players, but like streaming or shoutcasting, or do the social media, or do the fandom art, or do the blogging, or create the marketing, or create the web presence, etc., they have to show and demonstrate all of their artifacts of learning through the club and what it's like to participate in the esports program. That's a key differentiator for us versus anyone else. So when you think about the work you do in your programs at your colleges and universities, we're not just preparing kids to play and be competitive, but we're also preparing the next generation of your shoutcasters, your streamers, your bloggers, your social media folks, your web developers, all the people that will make your team and your program successful. We're creating this whole holistic approach. And we also do it around health and wellness, where we give kids an opportunity to do check-in. One of the things I learned from Mark and Doc and Joey and others that I've gotten to know through NACE is you all have exercise physiologists, you all do mental health development. You do things because you care for kids, but also it helps them play better. It helps them compete better. We've created an entire curriculum with support from the UCI around how kids can examine their world, their feelings, their relationships from the lens of play and competition through gaming and esports in a way that isn't foreign to them, that says, wow, I could be a better gamer or player if I understand these things. And it's really all for this ultimately. We all know that some of our kids will excel and do really well. And a handful of them might actually make some money at it and do really well at it. But most of them won't. So what do we do to prepare these kids in a way that they can enjoy their trajectory of learning and play at the same time? So through our curriculum and through play, they learn all of these sundry skills to allow them to do the things that they really want to be able to do, not only in the club and in the play in the college and university and afterwards as a professional, but after that, where do they go? What do they do? The guy or girl that does the great event management, builds out all the bracketing, manages all that. Geez, they could work for Marriott, they could work for Hyatt, they could work for Intel, they could work for global companies, local companies that like to do hospitality and event management. And that's really what we try to do, is that holistic approach in partnership now with NACE and NACE members to figure out ways to be able to make that happen. and build that kind of pipeline through your schools to make it work. If you don't know Dr. Steinkuhler, I would suggest that you try to get to know her or read up on her literature. She's the one that did a 4-year IRB-approved study of our curriculum, not just of NASEF as a competition platform, but our curriculum and the data around the learnings that occur through science and math and STEM skills are really, really important in what that is. In our format's really simple. We use the term club. I know in collegiate and other ways, clubs are often kind of the JV or intramural. I guess in some way that makes sense for us too. But the club is that kind of holistic gathering where kids gather. And we have over 1,000 pages of curriculum, toolkits, et cetera, that kids use. And part of what they have to do is they have to build a business plan. And as part of their club, they have to go, who's going to be the shoutcaster? Who's going to do the fandom art? Who's going to do the streaming? Who's going to manage the events, et cetera? So we're really preparing these high school kids to go on to your schools and your programs and be able to excel. And as part of that, you may or may not know, we have a fellows program, similar to like MacArthur Fellows or Woodrow Wilson Fellows, those types of things. They're individuals who really want to learn how to connect learning with esports and gaming and play. And we have individuals from South Africa, Mexico, UK, Japan, et cetera, who go through our year program. And the core of it is really simple. We create community, and we do that through the use of curriculum and clubs and combine all of that in a way that makes sense. And for those that question, well, how do we know you're good and the like, and who are you? Besides Dr. Steinkuhler's research, we were also the recipient this year of the Academic Cody Award as providing the best scholastic information around esports in the United States. So there's a whole lot that we bring to the table on how we can work with NASEF schools and various other activities. So sorry if I bored everyone with a little too much information, TMI sometimes, but I tried to keep it short and at least give you the gist of what NASEF is and what we offer to NACE and NACE schools.
I don't think anyone is bored by that, and I know the academic space in college esports is heating up, and that's to put it lightly. A year ago, we only saw a handful of institutions even fielding a certificate program in something esports related, and now we see institutions all around North America with full major programs, undergraduate, bachelor degrees. So it is spun up, and that doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. So that information was fantastic. And for those who weren't familiar with NASEF, I wonder if you can speak about this just for a little bit. But, how many high schools are involved in NASEF? You mentioned a lot in Southern California, which I get because that's where you're headquartered. But NASEF is much bigger than that. And we have schools all around North America. So,
Yep. Sure. So we're in 48 states. As I said, there are over 1,800 schools around. And as I mentioned earlier, we went international because of a relationship we have with the U.S. State Department. They saw our work and they said, wow, you have this whole focus on entrepreneurship, on skill development, on kind of the basic qualities of democracy. How can we use your program in a partnership and instill our values overseas? So we did two things. For those of you who are into like engineering education and like, you've heard of something called Rube Goldberg. It's those 6 simple engineering machines. We took this 41-year-old program and took it digital for the first time this year, and we did it around the world. We had 21 countries and about 1,800 schools that participated. But the big one was Farmcraft, where kids went in. We built a world in Minecraft called Farmcraft, and we taught kids through play about agriculture, climate change, biotechnology, biochemistry, and then they had to work in teams, learn how to communicate well, do all the things they needed to do through design thinking, engineering design in Minecraft, and then they had to demonstrate their skills by videotaping themselves, putting up on Flipgrid. And then it got judged by professionals within the Department of Agriculture, believe it or not, at the U.S. Department. So we had 41 countries, as I said, almost 2,800 schools. like 8,000 kids. And the interesting thing is, all of our program is free, by the way. I didn't mention that. But since we were philanthropically based and developed, we don't charge anything. We believe that kids should be able to grow and thrive without having to be limited by the zip code they're born in, their financial capacity, the color of their skin, their gender preference, whatever that may be. So our program is 100% free. Our curriculum, the training, the coaching, the things that we're doing, et cetera. And I think especially our international growth, for those of you who are into recruitment and think about recruiting, not only nationally, but internationally, the international students tend to pay a little bit more. And college administrators and admissions folks tend to like the fact that, they come in, they're skilled, they're capable, and they also can add a little bit more economic value. So by expanding our work internationally the way we are, what a great opportunity. I just had a call with the CEO at Deutsche Bank this morning in India, and they are going to help us and fund 600 schools to start with in India, over 1 million kids. And our goal is to get that up and running during this fall sometime by using the NASEF curriculum, our format of clubs, and bringing competition into the students in India. And those are all kids who have great potential, who are ripe for, admission into your schools. They add great value. They add economic value and the like. So we're really about pipeline development, offering recruitment opportunities, all of those types of things for our NACE members.
So, Gerald, I know with our working group that we have together, which I should explain some of the work that group is doing, but we actually have a heat map. Do you mind if I show that, just an overlay?
Oh, yeah, please do. This way they'll get to see some of the work we're actually doing rather than just talking about.
Right. Well, I think I'm a visual learner. Others have called me a slow learner, which is different.
I'm in the same boat then, Michael.
But yeah, I figured I focus because if I do zoom out, you'll see there's NASEF all around the globe. But just because of NACE, we're only in North America. Although we do have some U.S. territories as well that are members. But what you see here, and I know I'm pointing at the wrong screen, sorry. Blue is NASEF, right? And obviously NASEF has many more high schools who participate there than there are college and universities, period, with eSport programs. But the red there represents NACE membership. And if I were to zoom in here, right, you can see a little bit more concentrations. And I'm doing here at the Midwest and East Coast just as an example. But what we're hoping to do, one of the key goals of us working together, is to streamline the process to opportunities in higher education. We know many of our institutions, our coaches and directors are looking for ways to make sure the opportunities they have on their campuses are open to as many people who are interested and meet the qualifications to participate, whatever their mission requirements may be. And that's been a major pain point, a struggle in the whole collegiate scholastic esports space. So that is definitely something I wanted to share. But also just, there are so many high schools that are members, even just here in the U.S., North America. You can see they also extend to Canada for NASEF.
Can I ask a question or add to that, if I may, Michael?
Please.
One of the things that we'd like from all of you who are attending is we're really trying to identify the right point people in the NASEF schools in your region or the regions you want to reach, and who would be the right point person for your programs. Sometimes it's you, and sometimes it's someone else, just because of the numbers and the responsibilities of making contact and following up and doing things. But if there's one takeaway of many I hope you'll get from this is think about who would be the right contact person for your program and your school to be able to reach out that Michael and I can make mutual introductions with and begin to have the conversations. Because once we find the geographic and programmatic alignment, where do we go from there? Well, that's a conversation that I don't think I can have. That's a conversation at the grassroots level for you all to have with the local schools. And that's part of what we want to facilitate and why this heat map was created.
Yeah. We both know we're both large organizations, one a little bit larger than the other. But but there's just an organic good there. But there's work on making sure those connections are possible. So there's a survey that we shared out earlier. We're going to probably share that again, just to make sure people have access to it, to identify those common points of contact between our college universities and especially the high schools in their area. And there's a huge amount, as you saw from the heat map, a huge amount of overlap, where hopefully our institutions can not just for recruitment purposes, but also can serve as a base for all the high school programming that's happening around them. And I know many of you already do that for your own community, and that's laudable. But we're hoping to make sure you have more work than you can handle. That's what we want to do. So one more question related to kind of background information on NASEF. We talked about the academic programming built around esports that NASEF has done. I would love to know, and I'm sure for those who still aren't as familiar with NASEF as we are, but beyond the academic programming, what else does NASEF do in terms of services aimed at high school level students? Competition is obviously the big one, but I'd love to hear more from your own words.
Yeah, so we try to provide an experience for high school kids and make them aware of and expose them to everything that they could be through the lens of gaming and esports. You know, one of the things that I found in all of the work that we were funding and doing with the foundation was that oftentimes those kids that are left out are not left out because they don't want to be part of something. They yearn to be part of something. They just don't know. They don't have, in many cases, a parent who's an engineer or a parent who's a doctor or a parent who's an esports player or a gamer, or they may come from a household where they have a lot of siblings, and part of their responsibility after school is to take care of family obligations. Or they may have a single parent or double parent household where, they're just stretched economically and don't have resources to engage in other kinds of activities and after school programs that cost money. Or even, how many have I seen that have never been on a college campus, don't even know what a college campus is, don't have parents who went to college. But these are all kids who are really capable. So we try to really talk about how do we help kids thrive and grow and see opportunity. So we do that in a lot of different ways. And it's one of the attractors that Michael, you and I talked about is we really want NACE schools to be kind of that mirror image for these kids. What could it be? If esports is what's your attraction, then let's figure out maybe you're competitive and you can come in, even get a scholarship, or maybe you're just really cool at art and you could do the web design work and the logo design work and manage our social media and those types of things, because all those pieces become really critically important in order for any team, any program, any club to grow and develop. Well, some of the things that we're exploring, Michael and I and our working group, are things like dual enrollment. The opportunity for our high school kids to also take some classes, visit your campuses, learn about your esports program, learn about the academic program, and get credit along the way. What a great way to build some relationship with those kids that you want to attract. It also gives you a chance to kind of vet the student. And is he or she the kind of student you want in your program? The other is, and we've started to talk about it, and I know there are some restrictions around the concepts of providing esports support, whether it's through kind of mentoring, coaching clinics, in person, hosting things at, collegiate arenas, those types of things. We're in the nascent stages of those discussions now. And that's one of the reasons why the heat map was so helpful to us, is identifying who those people are, who those entities are, so we can start putting those pieces together to make that happen. We have an entire array of program, curriculum, training, all developed through University of California, through Mark Deppy's program as well, through the Orange County Department of Ed, and a couple of other schools as well, around things like mentorships, ambassadorships, coaching programs, really helping kids thrive and grow. So I think the relationship with NACE and the schools that are interested in wanting to reach into high schools and help high school kids see a future for themselves is really both inspiring and exciting.
Thank you for that. There's one other item, and I don't know. We should have probably started with this, but I'll go ahead and share my screen so people can see what I'm talking about. But obviously, fairly recently, NACE and NASEF partnered, and I wanted to make sure people. I just typed in Google NACE NASEF, and yours was the top link. And, well, ours was the third link, but I clicked the one close to the top. That wasn't the ad on Google. But this was the article that went out about the announcement, right? And it was posted on both of our websites, same information. But I thought it was important to highlight for everyone, and I'll actually see if I can zoom in here. There we go.
You're better than I am.
You get yelled at enough, eventually the information sinks
you've
in.
had a day and a half of trying to play with this already. So
Yeah,
you should be pretty good at this, Michael.
So this is the announcement, right? But in particular, why I'm going here is to highlight this section. So these were the areas that we identified mutually together where we thought the most good can be done in the immediate short-term future. And this is exactly the roads that we're charging down today. Is this to say that we're limited just to these areas? And I know these are our high-level objectives, right? The details are missing. That's because we're figuring out the details now. But this is not exhaustive, right? We're definitely open, especially on our side. I'm sure on NASEF's side, more ways to build these bridges, and that's been a big a theme, I think, of this year, especially the later part of this year, in building bridges between organizations to accomplish mutual objectives and goals. And that's true not only just in the collegiate space, but also the high school space. And these are the areas we identified. First off, recruitment, right? We hear you every single day, the trouble and concerns around recruitment. We have some tools there, but we know those are not silver bullets, right? They don't get all of our member institutions to the place they would like to be. And on the flip side, we have the exact same issues at the high school level, where actually it's more a lack of information, a lack of kind of direction on achieving success at the collegiate level, or even getting an opportunity to be within the collegiate esports space that we're hoping to bridge there. Next is scholarships, and I've got an announcement there that I'll be sharing tomorrow related to that, but we're looking to build this even more. But yeah, scholarships, right? Not only helping students within NASEF gain access to institutional scholarships from NACE member institutions, but more so than that, to identify external sources of revenue and resources to help provide a larger pool of non-institutional dollars to provide scholarships for these students as well. Looking at championship events, something that we did this last spring for our national championships, we hosted actual joint championships. Yes, it was online, so it's kind of what we're planning on doing moving forward. Obviously, we're looking forward for in-person events as we get some of these COVID restrictions lifted. But absolutely, right? It's pooling together audiences, creating that synergy between the high school level of esports and the collegiate level of esports that's been missing for the last 6 years, right? I think we're the first org to finally try to bring those together. And that was only as of 3 months ago? So fairly recently, and that was the first, but we're looking to expand that greatly. Looking at education, actually think NASEF is much further as an organization down that path than NACE is, right? It was only recently we started seeing schools offering programming within esports, within higher education, and we're just now starting to go down that path. But that is something where I think, personally speaking, from NACE's side, I think we actually have a lot to learn from NACEF. And then looking at initiatives around joint educational programming to raise awareness and career opportunities. That's something our membership has been quite clear about. We've dabbled in that with different one-off projects, but now to work with NACEF on real systematic approaches to this, I think is absolutely an objective that's worth the effort and resources.
If I can add to that last piece, Michael, and we see it and hear it all the time from industry, they take a student who they think is going to be great, has great book knowledge, has some, I'll say, rudimentary or fundamental skills, bring them into their company, and they go, oh my gosh, they really can't communicate as well as we thought. They don't demonstrate teamwork the way we want. They don't have the kind of social emotional learning skills, the soft skills that we want to see. And they have book knowledge, but they don't have all the other ancillary holistic skills that we want our kids to be able to have in the corporate world. Well, the same thing translates into your program at your NACE schools. In addition, to someone who just may be great at a particular title. You want them to be able to be a team player. You want them to be able to be a leader. You want them to be able to mentor and coach and be coached and be mentored. You also want them to be able to potentially, if they're not, the top player or top 3 or 4 or 5, depending upon the title, but they're really a great asset to your school, your team, your club, et cetera. Maybe they have a great skill around art, like I said, in fandom art or shoutcasting or streaming or event management. Hey, they could be the next coach of your school. They could take on lots of roles. We're trying to prepare these kids to go beyond just being the top 10 players in League of Legends or the top 10 in Overwatch or the top 10 in Dota or whatever it may be, that we really see that part of what we can create is this broad, deep pipeline that adds value to the kids, but also adds value to your program. And then when they leave your program, what do they have to offer? They're just not a League of Legends player, but they could demonstrate all these other skills that are now marketable out into the corporate world. And ultimately, for us, and I would suggest for you, the greatest legacy that you can give and build is an alumni association of kids who have gone through your program, who ultimately over time will give back to your program and give back to your college and university. And that's a sustainability process of what Michael and I think, saw together on how the relationship between us from middle school into high school into NACE schools really could be of value.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a difference in the esports space between those who have a short-term vision and a long-term vision. But we live in and work in the scholastic environment, and the time horizon for there is generational. So the foundations that we build today, for some of them, I don't expect to see the fruits of that in my lifetime, to be frank with you. But that's fine. That's the whole point. The alumni base, for instance, that's the bread and butter of athletic programs. But that was built over decades. But the seeds were planted very early on, and that's something that we need to think about as we work in our positions today. And I applaud Gerald. That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. Now, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, please. Well, I was going to say, because I've been reading some of the comments, and this is true across a lot of our member institutions in NACE. And it was done, I think, out of necessity, but also because of a resource question. Mm-hmm. Many of our member institutions are very well connected, especially in their communities, their geographical area, with the high schools and perhaps even middle schools, and kind of serve as a nexus for esports programming and efforts for their communities. Now, with NASEF, I know that you have a number of state organizations that you work with, right? Some in the athletics world, some that are specifically built only for esports. And I wanted to make sure to ask you a little bit about that, because I'm not too sure all of our member institutions know about the affiliate program or how that works within the NASEF model. But I know we have a lot of people that fall right into that situation.
Sure. So it actually came about out of necessity, because as we were expanding and growing exponentially, we couldn't handle the growth. So what we decided to do was really look at a modified kind of YMCA Boys and Girls Club, Girls Inc. model, which is very federated, where we create the content at the national or global level, and then be able to funnel it down into local communities. And where those communities start to get critical mass, then let them define for themselves what we call an intermediary or a affiliate. And that affiliate, and by the way, we don't pay them anything. They do this because they love kids, they love esports, they love the program, and they see value. And sometimes they can monetize it around professional development and learning in other ways. But they become the conduit through which we disseminate information, do trainings, and they're really kind of the boots on the ground. Like, for example, Pennsylvania has 138 schools that are in our program, in high school alone. In Pennsylvania, they have a system called the IU, which is the intermediary in the educational system. And they have regional IUs. Well, one of the IUs came to us and we were talking, and they understood the value proposition of esports. And they said, could we become your affiliate? Well, what they do is they do communication management. They bring people together. They do local tournaments. They reach out to local schools. They were fortunate enough because of Pennsylvania. They were able to build a relationship with Eric Darr and John Friend at Harrisburg. And, the folks there in Harrisburg has become a real partner to them around ways in which they can mentor, coach, be an ambassador, provide dual enrollment, et cetera. So we kind of try to find and create pathways and encourage through our communications, our toolkits and the like, ways in which they can build out an infrastructure. Because ultimately, just like with NACE, you need to have a sustainable infrastructure and a support system. And we couldn't do it. It would be so costly to do it at our level. This way, we're able to actually delegate it out to educators and people. So we have everyone from, for example, we have the IU in Pennsylvania. We have a foundation in Ohio called the PASS Foundation that actually partners with Nick Ryder and the Ohio Esports Affiliate Program. We have TechSef in Texas. We have, several, they're just all over. Mm-hmm. Probably our two most unique, if the others weren't, is one in Arizona. It's the Arizona Coyotes. The hockey team, they see the value of esports to build their brand. So there's a win for them on building their brand. And they have resources to compile, to get kids together, to give kids an opportunity to engage not only in hockey, but also in traditional esports and gaming and other types of things. And there are affiliate there. I just came back from Utah yesterday, actually, where my meeting was both with AJ from the University of Utah, Janali from the Utah Jazz, and Success in Education of the Garf Foundation. And the three of them are putting together this affiliate to provide programming, esports, NASEF clubs in every high school and every middle school in the state of Utah.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And the more successful you are, by the way, the easier job our members have in finding students and creating opportunities on their campuses. So there's not anyone that I can think of that doesn't wish you more success in spinning up more high school clubs, by the way. Like that's a general good thing. And in fact, I see that Matt Tarpley is actually a Texas board member. So, woo-woo, if I'm reading his comment exactly.
Hey, Matt, I just had a conversation with Bradford today around a bunch of stuff. He and I communicate all the time. So you got a good group down in Texas.
So speaking of partnerships, this has been fairly recent for NASEF, so I wanted you to add some words there. But you've recently partnered with Generation Esports on it used to be known just as High School Esports League, but they rebranded. But the High School Esports League is still there. Could you explain kind of the rationale, the purpose behind this partnership? I'm not asking you to go into a deep dive, just what happened there and what does this mean for NASEF?
Sure. That's a great question. It means a lot for NASEF. It means a lot for HSEL and Gen E. For those that may not know, and I didn't know until I kind of started really building this relationship, Gen E is the power, the platform that powers the competition. But the programmatic work is done through MSEL and HSEL, Middle School Esports League and High School Esports League. We had some conversations a long time ago just to get to know each other, Mason and I and some of the group over there, just friendly stuff. And over time, we began to realize that we weren't really competitors, that really what we were trying to do was the same thing. We were trying to help kids grow and thrive. They had a great kind of moral foundation and compass around who they are, which I think, Michael, is really at the core of you and me and our work together. And we each did things differently, much better. Candidly, our competition wasn't the best. We will go to BattleFi or, for this tournament, we do League Spot. For this tournament, we do Challenger Mode or whatever it may be. But, we didn't have our own platform. We had to try to kind of shop and choose and do the best we could. They had a great program through Jenny and their platform. They've really evolved that significantly over time. The other part was they tried to build out an academic component. They've done some good stuff, but it's been very myopic and really limited. That's been our forte. That's the work that we do, is really the academic piece. So when you put the two together, it's a combination of what we call play and learning, and you put it together, there's no one out there that has the substantive approach and opportunity for kids that the two of us each offer. And, like what we're doing with NACE, we're still in the formative stage. We're going to start building or announcing soon our common programming. One of the things that we said to them is, here are our negotiables. So, for example, play should be free. Kids should have an ability to learn and grow and play. The curriculum should always be free. We can raise funds and do funding in different ways. What does that look like within the potential of the esports marketplace? So we're going to be announcing soon, and we've done it a little bit over the summer. There's going to be a significant amount of free play that we're going to offer high school kids around the country. Like I said earlier, education to us is a fundamental right. You shouldn't have to pay to learn at the high school level, at the public ed level. Collegiate work is different.
College and universities resoundingly disagree.
Yeah,
with that
totally. But at the high school level, to get kids prepared for NACE schools and college level, they shouldn't be limited by the fact that, they don't have certain resources that others may have. Because, we all start the same. God forbid, unfortunately, except for some disabilities, we all have the same opportunity when we're born. How do we feed into that and give everyone the chance to grow and thrive? And that's really what we're trying to do at the middle school and high school level. So the relationship with Gen E and HSEL is really going to be a game changer, not only within North America, but also worldwide, because they're able to support our programming and our competition around the globe. So it's really going to be a great platform and a great partnership, just as we're doing with NACE. In between that, we now build a pipeline, and exponentially, the number of kids that we can reach is just huge.
So just in the time we have left, there were some questions and comments. And Gerald, if it's all right with you, I'd love to go kind of from the oldest of the comments and work my way to the most recent comments.
Absolutely.
So scrolling through here right now, first question, that presentation you showed earlier, are you willing to share that? That was
absolutely
the first question there. Absolutely. So we can get that, and we'll post it here on the Run the World platform. Just like all these videos, they're all there. You can access them anytime. But I'll get that from Gerald and get that to Emily. She actually knows how the platform works, and I won't break the thing.
Yep.
Mitchell over at Minnesota State Mankato, he actually wants to reach out to you, Gerald, to talk about the college of to connect you with their College of Education folks and the local K through 12 schools that they work with.
So my email is really easy. It's gerald@nasef.org. So GERLD@nasef.org. So here, I'll just throw it in little comment.
I got you, Gerald. I just did it for you.
Okay, there you go.
I already had my text bar open, so that made things easy there. Hot take from Matt over, he's a TechSF board member, but he's also one of our member institutions, our coaches. You can also, we talked about the presentation, you can also incorporate these integrations of esports into a collegiate realm. Absolutely. I already said this. I think the academic programming NACE has done is stronger than anything NACE has done collectively to this point. I'm hoping we're going to catch up and we're going to utilize the expertise that NACE has to do so in a quick timetable.
Let me add to that, Michael, if I may. We really, for those of you who like the more holistic approach and want to kind of bring in the academic piece as a partner to the competitive esports piece, please make the introductions to your schools of engineering, your schools of education, and the like. One of the things that we always want to do is iterate our curriculum. It needs to grow and develop. That's the function of our scholars program. We now will have 75 scholars by the end of this year. These are educators in the middle, high school, and out of school time space that do great education, and they love esports. And they're helping us continue to develop new and improving and responsive curriculum. So take advantage of what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's Jackie, who is part of our eligible force committee. That's Gerald. There's probably information you don't need to know necessarily, but you can think of that as our Supreme Court in their sense. They're the chief arbitrator, interpreter of our Constitution and bylaws, which defines everything, right? Her comment there is like, we should probably reapproach our eligibility standards on full-time student status to allow dual enrollment, and they can absolutely do that. And some supporters as well in the comments. So,
dual enrollment is probably one of the greatest opportunities that many colleges and universities, for whatever reason, just overlook. In today's world where college and university costs is so exorbitant, the ability for kids through high school, and not community college per se, but through high school, who have the capacity, the prowess, the competencies to be able to go ahead and learn the skills and go into your program with 10 basic credits, 15 basic credits already under their belt is huge. It also frees up their time for those that want to become more involved in the esports program, that I don't have to take arbitrarily, 5 classes a semester. Because I have this under my belt, maybe I could only have to do 3 or 4 a semester, and I could still matriculate within the time frame. So there's a lot of value around what that looks like for everyone involved.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you saw the applause you got off of that, but you got some there. More than I've ever gotten on this platform. Looking through this, I think, more dual enrollment comments. There we go. So this is being recorded. Obviously, we've got some other sessions going on at the same time now, but we'll, again, post this. By the way, I did have some questions. So I want to make sure everyone is on the same page here on where to access those videos. So if you go to the itinerary page for this convention and just scroll to the very bottom, you'll see the video links for every single session of the convention, member side or non-member side. They're all there. So just had a few questions of where to find those. We are also uploading them to YouTube. So again, publicly accessible to anyone who wants to take a look at it. It is on about a day delay at this point in time because we have to download the videos and then re-upload the videos. So it just takes some time to do that. But they are being uploaded as we get them back from the platform. So Ryan, thank you guys. Very excited about this partnership. Thank you for being here and participating. I'm hoping, this is, 2 of the largest in the collegiate and the high school space, 2 of the largest groups there, trying to build connections between our 2 fairly large populations, but it's 2 populations that need each other. So it almost boggles my mind, like, why hasn't this been done before? And then I realized, because we were literally building everything else as we were flying on both sides of this. So I get it.
To add to the confusion, NASEF and NACE are in a nascent stage. We're really building, like you said, this ship as we're flying it, and the ability, which is so unique, to instead of, you look at most sports, you look at, let's say, the Red Sox, you look at the 49ers, they've developed over the last 5 years some really great CR programming that help kids beyond just the sport. Obviously, it's an attractor and a brand identifier for the sport, but that's been after the fact, after 50, 100 years, whatever it may be. We have the unique ability between our 2 organizations to do it at the front end and to make it integrated into the experience for a child and for the fun and the play of what happens. And I really think that's a very unique space and place to be in. And I'm really kind of humbled that we're in that place to be able to have this conversation, with NACE. And as you said, Michael, I don't think there are any 2 organizations that have a greater sense of a moral compass and a value proposition of what our responsibilities are as adults, as parents, in our programming that we do. And that underpinning, I think, is at the core of why our relationship between our 2 entities are going to be successful.
Oh, absolutely. Now, before we go, because we're going to follow up on this as well, but could you help elaborate more on the ambassador program? Because I think that's our first call to action that's going out to our NACE members to help work more closely with your members as well. So before we close out, I'd love for you to expound upon that more so that people have that reference.
So we created a program, started with UCI. We're now working with, I think, 7 colleges and universities around the country, where we have actually created a toolkit and a training where we help kids. Some of them are in esports and some of them are not. Some of them are in schools of education and engineering, social sciences, who want to give back to kids, who want to do that near-peer mentorship, the near-peer learning. Sometimes it's through the student association at a school. Sometimes it's through an actual extra credit program where kids will get credit for doing the externship in what they do. And we do this entire training. The training was developed by, again, folks you know, Constance and Mimi and Katie, who put forth through Connected Camps, Connected Learning Labs, the research they've done, Susanna at Games for Change, other people who are really reputable in this field who help guide us as to how to build out this toolkit so that kids have an opportunity to give back. We're in a generation where, Gen X, Gen Z in particular, really are socially conscious. How do we help them thrive and grow? And again, it gets back to what's in it for them too, because they could put on their resume, look what I've done, and look at the things that differentiates me from others who may have the same quantitative qualifications. So we have an entire program, an entire training. We use a woman, Bethany Piles, who worked at UCI, who worked with Connected Camps, Connected Learning Labs. She actually has a dual employment position with us and with Cloud9, doing the same type of thing. They do background checks, they do evaluations, they do fingerprinting, because we're dealing with kids. So we want to make sure that everyone's protected, that students are safe. And then we do an actual training on how do you manage conflict? How do you deal with certain types of relationships and opportunities? And at the same time, give that ambassador the opportunity to say, hey, have you ever thought about college? Have you ever thought about our school? If you're interested in engineering, great. Let me introduce you. You're interested in esports? Well, come out and visit the arena and meet some of our players, et cetera, et cetera. So it adds to this whole pipeline recruitment opportunity, this whole way of really reaching into the community and becoming good community citizens. And every successful college and university is a good community citizen. And that's part of what we're creating.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Gerald, thank you for that. And the reason I asked, in case you didn't catch that, is because we're going to be sending out a form. We already did first iteration of this. We're doing it again, just to see if you, as an administrator, potentially your students, and that depends on your own campus policies, by the way. So check on that, please. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. I don't want to get myself in trouble either. But assuming it's good to go, it is a way to form those connections and do some good while leveraging the great students that you have and certainly your staff as well. But other than that, some housekeeping items. So this is the last session of today, the third day of the National Convention. We do have our virtual cocktail hour. So if you have a drink in hand and ready to go, you are ahead of me. But if you haven't done that, it's fun. You get put into a pod of 10 people, and every 5 minutes you rotate through randomly. We don't know who you get. I don't choose that. The system chooses that. It's random in an online fashion. It's a great way to get to meet someone on a 1v1 level, and hopefully you get a form connection and have a great conversation after that at any point in time. But it is a way to just get people to network, get to know their peers in the space, and I hope everyone's able to participate there. Every time I've also tried to do some shenanigans on it too, so if you're lucky, you might get that. And I do apologize if I cause a headache doing that as well.
I want to leave one last comment that I didn't mention, and that is that we are deeply involved in educational systems around the country, and we are in conferences all the time. From Texas to after-school programs in Massachusetts and Michigan, to FETC, to BET, to NICE, you name it, we're involved in some fashion in those types of things. We are looking for collegiate esport partners, not for money, but to come in and be part of a panel with us, to share with these school systems the opportunities that we've been talking about for the last hour. So there yet is, again, another opportunity to reach out, be a good community citizen, build these relationships, and do it in partnership with the work that we're doing. So please, we really want to hear from you. So the survey that was already talked about is really critically important. Share it with your colleagues and peers, have them send it out, because I just think that these are going to be huge opportunities, short and long term, for your programs.
Gerald's inviting you to go talk to high schools in your area, both your region and nationally. That's a great ask. So we'll be sure we'll make sure everyone sees that when it comes out again. And Gerald and his team are going to take a run at that and build those bridges. Gerald, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I know it was a lot of questions. I'm just trying to make sure that foundation of everyone knowing what NASEF is and the great work you do for your students is known across the board as much as possible. So thank you again very much for your time. I'm excited about the great work we're going to be doing together. I hope our members are excited as well. And thank you for joining us here at the 4th annual National Convention.
Great. Thank you again. Great to meet everyone virtually and look forward to having some ongoing conversations. And Michael, look forward to seeing you in a few weeks when I'm in KC.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it as well.
Take
See
care,
you, Gerald.
guys and ladies. Thank you so much. See ya.